Welcome to A Slice of Therapy. This podcast was created with Anchor. And if you've not heard of Anchor, let me explain. It's free. It's a really easy way to make a podcast. And it helps me because I can just do this every day directly into my phone, because there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. So if you fancy making a podcast too, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. There's a thing called alexithymia. I might be pronouncing it slightly wrong. Alexithymia is what it's called. And basically that is an inability to verbalise emotions, whether they be your own emotions or somebody else's emotions. And so when somebody with this condition goes through something that we might regard as emotional, then they won't say things like I'm sad or I'm angry or I'm hurt or anything like that. What they'll say is, something to do with the body. They might say, I've got a stomach ache. And it's interesting really that when we are unable to put a label, an emotional label on what's going on for us, like the people who have this particular condition, when we're unable to, we start to describe what our body feels like instead. And it can actually be quite a useful thing for us all to try on. So that when we're feeling something, maybe an emotion of some sort, or anxiety, or depression, or whatever it happens to be, sadness, joy, to actually go beyond the label and ask, well, what's actually going on for me in my body at the moment? What's happening in my body that tells me that that's the emotion that I'm feeling? While I'm putting this emotional label on what's going on for me, what's actually going on for me behind the label, underneath the label? And so those people with alexithymia would do that kind of naturally. They'd say, I've got a stomach ache or something similar. But it's interesting, isn't it, to think, well, what would that be for us? And one of the things that can be helpful with that is that we can start to build a connection between the label that we give a feeling and the actual physical sensation itself. In terms of emotions, the labels that we put on emotions are very much like when a painter paints a glass of water. Because when a painter paints a glass of water, they never paint a glass of water. What they'll do instead is they'll focus on individual elements, often in terms of where the light hits. And then that collection of individual elements ends up looking like a glass of water. And so with us as well, it's kind of a similar thing. We end up with an emotional label at the end of it. Like I feel anxious, or I feel afraid, or feel excited, or whatever it happens to be. But that excitement or sadness or joy, or whatever it happens to be, will actually be subtly different from person to person. Because the emotional label is a concept that we've learned to put on that set of feelings. Maybe we were younger and we were unhappy with the food that we were given as a tiny little child, and we'd express some upset around it. And somebody says, oh, you're angry. And so we take that concept and we kind of map it to these feelings in our own body. And so consequently, when one person feels sadness, it may well be a very different set, or at least a subtly different set of physical feelings, physical sensations that's going on. And so it's useful sometimes to kind of dig into that. What actually is going on in the body there? This thing that I'm calling anger or sadness or joy or whatever. What actually is going on in my body there that I can map and get a better sense of? Sometimes, of course, when we do that, we realise, and we map our emotions out in that way, we realise that some things that we give a label to feel actually quite similar to other things that we give a label to. Sadness, for instance, can feel a lot like fatigue. Anxiety can feel a lot like excitement. And so when we kind of dig beneath the label, we start to get an understanding of what's going on in our bodies. And from that understanding, we can sometimes help ourselves move forward. There's an acronym called HALT, which I suppose sums this up. So whenever we're feeling down in the dumps, it kind of uses HALT as a kind of check-in on our bodies, really. It's like, are you hungry? Are you angry? Are you lonely? Are you tired? And while one of those is an emotion, you can see that what it's actually trying to do there is trying to find out what's going on physically. I notice that when I go without sleep and I wake up and I've only had a few hours sleep and then have to face the day and I'm groggy, I notice that on those days, I feel kind of low. I feel sadder. I can be more irritable as well. Now, I could actually tell myself that I'm sad. I could tell myself that I'm down. I could tell myself that I'm cross. But when I dig beneath the label, what I notice is that I'm tired. And that's what's really going on for me. That my body, if you like, if you think of it almost like a bank account, the resources in my body are just lower today. I feel tired. And so once I recognise that, it can sometimes be helpful because then I know actually I'm not really down in the dumps. I'm low energy. And low energy might feel like being down in the dumps, but I'm actually quite tired today because I didn't get much sleep last night. And so the reason I'm sharing that really is it opens up some options, doesn't it, in terms of how we think of ourselves, how we think of the condition that we're in at that moment in time. And it may well be the case that we're feeling sad. It may well be the case that we're feeling anxious or whatever it happens to be. But beginning to get a better understanding of what the physical sensations are that we put that emotional label on can actually give us some other insights as well. And can sometimes reframe things in such a way that we view it differently, but also in such a way that we can kind of take care of ourselves more effectively as well. Because like in the example I've just given, if I get to an understanding that I'm not down in the dumps, I'm not feeling sad, that I'm actually low energy because I'm really, really tired, maybe I'll permit myself a nap. Maybe I'll go to bed early that night. Maybe I'll just accept the fact that I'm tired today and go easy on myself and give myself less to do. And maybe if I'd told myself I was sad, maybe I'd go down a different route, which might not be as productive. Or it might be, but at least it gives us a few extra options, and a few extra options are good to have, aren't they? So if you like this idea and you find it useful, then feel free to share it on to others. Let them listen to the episode so they can get the benefits as well. You can subscribe completely free so you never miss an episode again. And you can even work with me directly one-to-one. I'm Alun Parry, and you can find out more about me at liverpoolpsychotherapy.co.uk. Thanks for listening. I'll be back again tomorrow.